and we'll just jump in with some wins. Catch me up on how things have been.
Busy, super, super busy. That was actually the main reason why I got on here because I'm like, I haven't been on for like the last 2 weeks or so. And I was like, okay, I need to jump on because this is becoming an issue. So like I work full time. I went back to college to get my PhD full time.
Hmm.
I've got house stuff, of course, and stuff like that. And everything was going pretty well. I still haven't figured out my block scheduling very well because I'm still working my way through SOAR. I just got to A. But what threw me off was I had one kid fly down for 5 days, and then like a week later, I had another kid and grandbaby fly down for like another 5, 6 days.
Yeah.
And so when they're there, I don't do anything except like focus solely on that. I do nothing
Fair.
else.
Hmm.
Well, the second kid, whenever she came down, I did my homework early and I was feeling good about it. It's like that. And then they left. And then as soon as they left, I was like, oh, now I feel behind. And I'm still like, I'm turning things on time, but I'm still playing catch up. And so like, that's
Okay.
my sole focus. And I can't figure out like, okay, I've not worked on my source stuff, which I love doing. Like I really enjoy it. Like everything's gone to the waste. I can't figure out how to,
Get it back.
yes, like how
Yeah.
to do it all. Like, how, especially when somebody comes to visit kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that's really tricky because especially those of us who like learn to thrive off of a more routine schedule. I was telling someone today actually, like in the fall where I live in the Northeast, like there's a lot of days off of school, right? I live in a very diverse community. We've off for Jewish holidays, we've off for some of the like Hindu holidays, we have off for election day. Like there's just a lot of time off. And so I'm trying to make a schedule, but what helped me was realizing like not every day is going to look the same and I have to be flexible. So a couple tips I have for like the getting back on track, and one is going to be like the pre-planning before you need it. So if you know that there are typically things that throw your schedule off, and we know some of these, right? Like you might say like family visit, right? It also could be somebody gets sick, a day off. Like we know most of those. Like when I was going through after my car accident last year, I would have days where I had really bad headaches. And I would have to start saying, I know that I'm going to have days that have bad headaches. I don't know when they're going to be. So
Hmm.
what I would do on the days I felt good was I would stop and plan for myself, kind of the when the poop hits the fan blocks a little bit, but I would plan for that. What do I want my day to look like on a headache day? And sometimes on the day after a headache day, because the day after a headache day, I'm feeling scrambled, I'm feeling stressed out, I have so much catching up to do. How do I bring it back? And so one of the suggestions that, I might make for you is thinking about the common things that might like happen to throw you off a little bit and then trying to make a plan for them now. Because when we make a plan for them before we're stressed out, before our brain's in fight or flight, well, then it's a lot easier for us to jump back in. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So that's like, we'll talk proactive versus reactive, but that's the proactive, right? Is like now that we're thinking about it, it might be helpful for you to make like, all right, the kids are probably going to come visit at some point from now until the end of your doctoral program, right? Like it's going to happen
Oh, yeah,
again,
absolutely.
right?
Mhm.
So it's like, what do I want it to look like? Do I want to take completely off? Can I take completely off? Or do I want to be able to get like my bare minimum in, right?
Okay.
Is it that I want to be able to say, like, I have boundaries, like I still need to work. I do this when my kids are like homesick. I'm like, I still need to work, but I want to prioritize you. So what does that actually look like? So I would say maybe a proactive action while it's top of mind for you is to think, what do I want it to look like so that I have a plan for it? Because what that also does is it eliminates some of the guilt we feel when we get thrown off. Because you're like, oh, okay, well, maybe we didn't know this visit was happening, but I do have a plan for how I'm going to get back on track with my coursework, right? Like I know that. So I'm going to enjoy the time that I have with them and not worry about it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
it might look like either playing like an hour each day while they're here, or else maybe like I'm going to have this block on the day that I'm going to do just homework or whatever, like after they go back, something along those lines.
Yeah, whatever works for you. I
Okay.
do think when we're working on projects, sometimes we think, well, I can't have my regular schedule. So instead, I'm just going to like wash my hands of the whole thing. Whereas if you're intentional and you're saying, hey, I want to get at least an hour, there is probably an hour of when they're there at visiting time that like you could sneak into another room and get some coursework done. Right.
Okay.
But we don't
Yeah.
want to because our brain's like, well, they're here and I want to soak up a minute and all of those things. But also like there's probably an hour where they could probably use some downtime by themselves as well. Right.
True.
But I think we think, oh, well, I can't have my ideal schedule. So we have to throw it all out
That makes sense.
when
Yeah.
that's not reality, right? And that's not sustainable. And even if you only got in like a half an hour, at least what you're doing is you're moving towards it, and it's just one less thing to catch up on.
Very true.
Yes,
Okay. Well, that's very helpful.
that's the proactive. So that's like for next time, since it's
Uh-huh.
top. But now let's talk about now.
Okay.
So let's do the reactive. What do you do when it happens? So one of the things that I think is important is still like not feeling like you have to do it all, but starting small. And so I would say listing out all the things in all the areas that you're feeling like quote behind on right now. Sure, a lot of it's coursework. I'm sure there's housework. I'm sure there's other things work related. List them out by category. Like make your main categories of your life and then list them out. And then whenever I'm trying to like get back on track, I ask myself the question, what's actually urgent? Because when I list them out, I'll be like, well, I have to do it all. But like maybe that assignment really isn't due for another 2 weeks, right? But I need to complete this, like fill in this spreadsheet for work, and that's due tomorrow, right? So
Yeah.
I think that it's like looking at it, pausing, and then asking yourself, all right, now I'm going to go through the highlighter maybe, and I'm going to highlight one thing from each category. And I like to do it like this because sometimes we'll like hyper fixate on one area of our life, but then the other areas where we have goals gets neglected, right? So this instead, I'm saying, all right, let me go through and get one thing from each category that is the next thing that is actually quote due, right? Like, and again, your house, like maybe it is just like the laundry's got to get folded and put away. Like that's just the first thing on my house list, or we're not going to be able, like we're pulling out of the basket right now. It could be that, right? So you decide what your urgency is, and then you take that list and you say to yourself when you're planning, all right, so I'm going to focus on getting the top thing from each category done today. And then that's one off. And then the next day, let's do the top thing. And then kind of cycle yourself until you get to like Sunday, where then you're able to recalibrate and replan. And I think that helps you get back on track without feeling like, well, there's so many things in so many areas of my life, and I don't know any like where to go from there.
Okay. Yeah, that's really helpful because right now, like literally for the past week, all I've been is like homework. Every spare second has to be focused on homework. And my husband's like, so you going to do the dishes? I'm like, you got two hands, Bubba, you know, kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, also though, you can enroll those people into help as well. So when you're going through and you have your list, what will be really helpful then is you can grab a different color highlighter, right? One is like me and one is delegation. And you can say, if there are things like, hey, can you make dinner tonight? Can you go pick this thing up? Something at work you can delegate. If there is something you can delegate, this way you have those things. Because what often will happen then is people might say, I know my husband will say to me, like, oh, how can I help? Right. Or like, and I'm like, I don't know, just figure it out. Like, you know, that's more work for me. Right. Like, because now I'm carrying the mental load of deciding what, just look around, see you need and fill it. Right. But oftentimes when people ask that, if we're not prepared to give them an answer, we start to get stressed out about the help. And then we're like, never mind, I'll just do it myself. Because it's easier, right? So if you know this list, and maybe we'll make that the action for the week while we're on right now, you can feel free to like start getting it out of your brain. Then when it's like, hey, listen to your husband, like I could really use help if you picked up dinner, like doing dinner this week because I'm trying to catch up on this coursework, right? And even show like this is all the stuff I've got to get done right now. These are like my top things. This is where I could use some help. But now you have the language instead of, I don't know about you, but like, you know, I'm stomping around here because nobody's helping me. Like instead of that, right? Instead of that, like, well, I'll just do it all myself because that's how we've been conditioned to live, right? I'll just take it all on. We can be very concrete. When someone's like, how can I help? You can say, actually, the dry cleaning needed to get picked up.
Oh, yeah.
And it's one less thing. You know what I mean? So do you feel like a list like that would help you kind of feel back on track?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Because I don't like focusing just like on one area. So, because I feel like I'm like, okay, I know I'm dropping other things. So
exactly. Yeah. And then this way it's like you're moving forward in all the areas. And today's Friday, right? So I feel like maybe you make your list today and you kind of start doing some action Saturday, Sunday, and then relook at that list when you do your weekly planning. So that's the other tip when like the week gets thrown off, don't skip the weekly planning. Even if you're like, oh, I'm so behind, I couldn't get to my other goals, still do the process because now you have the list of tasks and it'll get you back on track. Sometimes we want to wait, right? We want to be like, well, I'll get back to the weekly planning structure and the framework once my triage list of things is done.
True.
But the list's just going to keep growing. Do you know what I mean? Like it's just going to continue to grow and then we're not going to get to it. So, you know, there's a bunch of strategies from SOAR that we kind of like threw in there. Proactive, try to make the plan when you need it. Before you need it, the reactive, make the plan, categorize, and then also getting back on track with the habits. And I think if you do those things by next Friday when we check in, I think you'll feel a little bit more in control. Like you've kind of taken that back.
That sounds good. That sounds awesome. That's what I'm going to spend the rest of this session is making up my list.
Do it. Oh my gosh, I love that. Big action is going to be kind of your brain dump to get back on track. Anything else you want specific accountability, like maybe next week we can talk about the SOAR plan and the videos and stuff? Or
That sounds good.
okay.
Yeah, try getting back on. I am gonna put that down to try to start working on those two, but it's because I do enjoy them. And
Yeah, so put it on your list, maybe under personal goals. And then you're going to start to see, hey, you get the things done urgently. Maybe it's on the bottom of the list because it's not like a due date for you, but maybe you still get to it because you've wrote it down. Your brain's like, I know this is something I want to work on.
sounds good.
Awesome, Stephanie. All right. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.